Hi, welcome to Ray's Sensation. I'm your host, Dan, and today I'm going to be talking about manga, and specifically about this book, MANGASIA. Okay, so before I dive straight into this book, I thought I'd talk a little bit about becoming aware of manga and why I like a book like this, which is about the history of manga. And it has a lot to do with when I was younger, one of the first cartoons I really loved as a kid was Astro Boy. And I had no idea that was from Japan. I just thought, I didn't know that much. I was seeing a lot of cartoons, and there's nothing in particular that said that this was a foreign cartoon to me. And then the not too long after falling in love with Astro Boy, they also started showing Ultraman dubbed into English on TV. And of course, Ultraman was live action, and I could see, oh, these guys don't look American. This doesn't look like America. And I found out it was from Japan. And then I found out that Astro Boy was from Japan. And, that got me very interested in these where cartoons came from. I was always very interested in the history of the things I was reading or looking at. And so, I kept my eye out for things. And the first big history, I guess, I read of any of the Japanese comics was Frederick Schott's book, Manga, which came out in the early 80s. And there had been a few comics rather, that had been translated at that point, but not a lot. And it was amazing to look at that book and see the wide variety of subjects and topics that were covered in Japanese comics and the different art styles. And at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, am I ever going to see any of this stuff translated? Am I going to get to read these things? And I thought maybe the book was going to generate so much interest that there would be this big flood. And sure enough, over the years, different comic companies tried to bring the Japanese comics over with varying degrees of success. I remember the first time they tried to bring Lone Wolf and Cub over. They did not make it through the entire series, which is, not that hard to understand because it's a massive story. It follows, just so long. And there were other attempts throughout the years, and I used to read them all, or look at them all. I didn't follow most of them. I wasn't interested in robots or battle suits or anything. I was interested in, I remember reading Mai the Psychic Girl, Kamui, Lone Wolf and Cub, of course, and Fist of the North Star. So there were things I was watching, but at the same time, I still wanted to see what else was out there. Schott did a follow-up in the early 90s, Dreamland Japan, and that was another good look. It covered a lot of things that had happened in Japan since the first book, and talked about what had come over to the U.S. Both those books are fun books, and if you can find them cheap, they're worth getting. I don't have my copies here. They're both in storage, and the manga has fallen apart because I read it so much, and also I used to bend the pages down a lot so that I could Xerox things and use them in fanzines and stuff. One other interesting thing was an attempt by Shonen Jump, who had a lot of things that are most popular with kids. Like this has One Piece in it, and this is where Dragon Ball was done, Yu-Gi-Oh, which was really big at the time. The cartoon was huge when they put this out, so there it is on the cover. And there was an attempt to do these and do them the way they do them in Japan, with chapters of all these different titles, so that you were bound to find something you liked. I don't know how long this lasted. These weren't the kind of comics I was interested in, so I only got a couple issues of those. But this was another attempt, and this is the for mature readers kind of thing. And this is the first place. This came out, what's this, March 2001, and this is August 2001. And these are hipper, more adult comics. There's articles in here about culture and reviews of different mangas and stuff, and talking about the things that had already been done, like Akira and Lone Wolf and Cub. And like I said, this is where I first saw Junji Ito. This is a Uzumaki, which is a fantastic comic that you can... do I have... Oh, shoot. It's not behind me. Well, this is another one of his... Oh, here we go. So in this issue, there's Uzumaki, and in this issue, there's... Well, this is a different... I thought this had the Gaio in it. This is a different one. But nowadays, this is more Uzumaki. But Gaio was also translated in this magazine, if I remember correctly, although that's not it. Nowadays, here it is, Gaio, in a cool-looking hardcover with all these great things there. So anyway, there's a ton of manga available now. But are we seeing it all? Are we getting a good look at the Japanese comics? And if you go online, there are fan sites that fan translate a lot of comics that are considered, they're not considered viable for the U.S. market, that are out there, so you could look that way. This book is not only covering Japan, it's covering all the Asian countries, and it gives you an idea what's out there. And even the Japanese stuff that's being printed now, it's almost all newer stuff. And so there's all this older comics that look really interesting that we might never see. And this book is just a great thing, even if you don't go looking after these comics. And I don't know how much time I'll have to look for more of these things. This book itself is so visually interesting, I think most people would want to have it in their library. If you're interested in graphic design, this is just a fantastic book. Here's a little timeline of important things in Japanese comics, including some of the times when things are translated to the U.S., different pages, different series. Here it goes into the different art in Japanese history that kind of influenced the way the Japanese comics look. And, some of these big pieces like this, you can see on display in museums. I remember the Freer Sackler Gallery in Washington, D.C. had some big screens, these big story screens, fantastic to look at. And there it's showing the influence of the American comics on them. And just look, Toads doing sumo. Great stuff. And so I won't go through this whole thing, but and like I said, it's not just Japan. It's all the different Asian countries, and they all have their own industries and their own influences. In some of the countries, like the Philippines ones, they look much more influenced by U.S. comics than Japanese comics. There's Chinese comics, Indian comics, just all kinds of great stuff. And like I said, visually, this book couldn't get more interesting. Like I say though, the same way I felt about manga in the early '80s, I look at this and I say like, well, there's no way that this stuff is going to end up translated and available. Luckily, like I said, there is the internet. You can look around and find some of this stuff. But some nice curated and printed stuff would be neat. Oh God, see these hardcomic covers are great. I wish they were printed a little bit bigger. In some cases, they're a little small for my taste. And yeah, like I said, it's a good overview of all the different countries and their. And one of my points being was that we have kind of some stereotypes of what comics are here in the U.S. For U.S. comics, we also have stereotypes about what comics are from Japan and or even any of these other countries. And this just puts out the fact that there's so much out there and so many topics and so many ways of looking at the world in these other comics and these other countries. It's just fascinating. And that's the good thing about the Dreamland Japan book, because Schott tries to put it in a cultural perspective. And this book does the same. It tries to talk about, what countries had a strong political influence on their comics, and where the influences came from, and what cultural things affected the topics. So anyway, in the future, I'll be looking at some manga. I have kind of limited tastes in what I actually buy or read on a regular basis, and I just wanted to make sure. Whoop, there's a naughty page. I hope I don't get in trouble for that one. I just wanted to point out that there's a lot of different things. I have particular things that are interesting to me, but if you're interested, there is a lot of different stuff to look at. And this is a great book, a great place to start. It gives you a lot of names to look for, a lot of types of comics to look for. So that's that. And look for more manga-related stuff in the future. Maybe not a lot, because like I said, there's only so much that I'm interested in. And there's a lot of channels that cover manga, quite frankly. And, a lot of people who are more into the popular stuff. But I hope to point out some of the things that interest me. Thanks for watching.